news from earlier this morning. A deadly earthquake has hit off the coast of southern Mexico. This is reported to be the strongest earthquake in a century, killing at least 5 people and triggering a series of tsunami waves. The quake hit just as heavy rains from Hurricane Katia reached the east coast of Mexico. We'll have more on this as the story develops. Meanwhile, the devastation caused by Hurricane Irma continues to grow.
Did a flyover, and I have to tell you, my heart sunk. And this has been one of the worst days of my life. So I know how you must feel as Barbudans. The entire country has been decimated. I have never seen anything like this before.
That's Prime Minister Gaston Browne trying to console the residents of Barbuda after Category 5 Hurricane Irma destroyed the country. Right now, Irma is classified as a Category 4. Irma made landfall earlier this week. There are at least 7 confirmed deaths. The youngest victim is said to be only 2 years old. Half of the 100,000 residents in Antigua and Barbuda have lost their homes, and now Hurricane Jose is a Category 3 storm that could hit the same area again. Joining me on the phone now is the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Browne. Good morning, Prime Minister.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Please tell us about the devastation. We saw a little bit of video, but what are things looking like on the ground now?
Well, you're probably aware that Antigua and Barbuda is a twin island state. The main island, Antigua, is fine. It's business as usual. But Barbuda, on the other hand, which was in the direct path of Hurricane Irma, has been totally decimated. At least 95% of the properties on Barbuda were damaged. We're now going through a process of evacuation. Yesterday it was a voluntary evacuation. We now have a mandatory evacuation in place. And the intent is to get all of the residents of Barbuda by about 3 o'clock today, the latest. Because, as you know, there's an impending storm in Hurricane Jose. It's following a similar path to Irma. And Barbuda certainly is in no condition to take yet another hurricane, a back-to-back hurricane. The housing stock there is totally in ruin, and we have absolutely no choice but to literally relocate all of the residents of Barbuda to Antigua.
So is the plan to relocate from Barbuda to Antigua?
That's right, it's happening. I believe we have had at least half the residents of the island already, and the other half will be taken off this morning going into the early afternoon.
Have you heard anything from the Trump administration or USAID, anyone at the State Department in terms of disaster relief in efforts to rebuild?
The USAID normally we have not heard directly from anyone from this department, but we do have connections with some in Barbados, the embassy in Barbados.
How can residents in the United States help? We've got Hurricane Irma coming down our way, but I know people want to help. Or how can we best help you?
Well, what we have done, the government has actually opened a couple of accounts styled the Barbuda Relief and Rebuilding Fund. Our biggest challenge is to rebuild Barbuda. The problem with Barbuda is that the properties there and they're uninsured. And this is really more of practice over many decades, because what happened, the property title in Barbuda is actually leasehold and not freehold. Generally speaking, the banks do not provide funding on leasehold properties. So most of the properties, at least 99% of the properties in Barbuda, are funded from personal savings over a period of time. And generally speaking, the residents do not insure. So we cannot even rely on insurance proceeds to help to mitigate the impact of the financial loss. In essence, these individuals would have to get some form of assistance from the state in order to rebuild. And that makes it even more painful, because ordinarily the recovery efforts and rebuilding efforts would have been limited to perhaps infrastructural costs for the government of Antigua and Barbuda and government institutions. But we now have to raise resources to assist in rebuilding the personal properties of these individuals. And we have estimated so far the cost to be in excess of over $100 million US, and that's conservative.
My goodness. Well, Prime Minister Brown, thank you so much for joining us. The country is in our thoughts and prayers, and we will hopefully speak with you again soon. Here in the studio today is today's panel: Brandon Cooper, chairman of the Prince George's County, Maryland Republican Party; Amber J. Phillips, co-host of the Black Joy Mixtape podcast; and Joelle Payne, Democratic strategist with the Corvus MSL Group. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, today. So happy to have you. Many flock to the Caribbean islands to spend time in paradise, but that perfect vacation has now become a nightmare for a group of Americans now stuck on the island of St. Martin. Joining me on Skype from Arlington, Virginia is Kashonna Harvey, who is trying to get her friends home. Kashonna, you left your trip a day early, but what did your friends tell you about being in the middle of a hurricane? Okay, so we've just lost Kashonna. We will get her back shortly. Let me turn to our panel. You've seen the devastation in Antigua, in Barbuda. It's absolutely horrific. How do you feel about this? Do you think that the United States will step up with disaster relief for Barbuda, similar to what we saw in Haiti? Amber, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think these storms are pushing us into having a conversation about resources in these communities. After any devastation, after any storm, there's always a recovery period, and that recovery takes finances, takes resources, takes more than insurance. I was someone who was politicized by Hurricane Katrina, and seeing that devastation, our country's response to that devastation was heartbreaking, and why I find myself in politics today. So I'm hoping that we can pull it together, that we come together as a country to really make sure that these places have what they need, and then we evaluate places like Florida and New Orleans and Texas, people who are below sea level, to make sure that they have what they need year-round in case storms like this hit.
So let me play devil's advocate, because you saw all of the help that we provided to Haiti after Hurricane Matthew. We've got huge devastation in Houston. Who knows what Florida is going to look like, at the end of the week. And then we have countries that have been devastated that ultimately will be looking to the United States for foreign aid. Do we ever get to a point in time, and I'll start with you, where maybe the government questions whether or not we rebuild, or the extent that we rebuild areas like Houston, like Miami, like New Orleans, when we know that they are prone to this kind of disaster?
Yeah, I mean, different parts of the country have their own, natural disasters. I'm from the Midwest, from Ohio. We deal with tornadoes.
Yes.
And it's something that, is a natural occurrence every year for us. And so people who live down in the South, I think they're used to the hurricane season and know what to do. I mean, again, like you said, we focus a lot on preparations, but the recovery is just as important. What's going on right now in the Caribbean, you're talking about the international community, whether the United States should get involved. It's definitely not just the United States. British and French are sending military troops and ships to help with recovery down there. I studied abroad when I was younger in France and in the Caribbean countries down there. I have friends down there now, and they're saying, yeah, they're getting a lot of help, not just from Americans, but also international
around the world.
Exactly, come to help it out. So
we've got Kashonna, so I'm going to turn to her. Thank you, Kashonna. Thank you so much for joining us. You left the trip a day early, but what did your friends tell you about being in the middle of a hurricane?
They said it was just a grace, like God. There was nothing but God that was protecting them from the hurricane. We were in a four-room villa on the 5th floor, right behind the airport in St. Martin, and it was 6 people in one bathroom, and it was just traumatic. My friends was just shaken up, but also very thankful to still be alive.
So I understand that they sent pictures of the destruction. Are they okay?
As of right now, they are. We have one friend, Ronisha, who is breaking out in hives. She lost her medication in the hurricane, but as of right now, mentally, they are not okay. Physically, they are just trying to stay strong, but most importantly, they're trying to get home.
How long until they make it home?
They have not given us a deadline. Yesterday I was slated to go to work. I called out, calling every embassy, every piece of a person that you can touch in the government that I could, and their family and parents as well. They're not giving us any indication of when they're coming home. They're not giving us any indication of the seaports being reopened. The airport, of course, was destroyed. So right now we're just looking to find a way to get out, even looking at private jets.
Kashonna Harvey, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you the best. We wish your friends the best and hope that they get back safely.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.